This time, we're taking you on a wild ride through the evolution of gaming. And to do that, we're tracing the career of one incredibly talented artist. That's Liao Zhenxiong.
And what a journey it's been.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who's gone from working on games like, the original Shrek on Xbox to crafting these insane VR experiences. It's like he's seen it all, from those early days to the bleeding edge.
And what's fascinating is that he started his career right when online gaming was exploding, especially in China.
Oh, so he was right there in the thick of it, as the industry was finding its footing.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. He was in China when the Chinese gaming market itself was just taking off. So he wasn't just watching these changes happen. He was part of that wave.
Wow, that must have been something. So what were some of those early projects that really showed just how fast things were changing? What was he working on back then?
Well, it's important to remember that this was a time when even just collaborating internationally on games was still pretty new.
Right. It wasn't as seamless as it is now.
Exactly. But Liao was already contributing to these massive, globally produced titles like Transformers, Spider-Man, even the early Call of Duty games.
Call of Duty? Wow, no kidding. I mean, that's a behemoth now. Was it clear back then that those games would, become these cultural moments? Was there a different kind of pressure?
It's wild to think about, right? The tech back then, even for those big AAA titles, seems almost, primitive compared to now.
Yeah, it's like comparing pixels to, real life.
Right, but it forced developers to be incredibly resourceful, like squeezing every last drop of potential out of the hardware.
He had to get creative to make things happen.
Absolutely, and Liao often talks about how those limitations actually pushed him creatively.
Okay, so he's got this foundation in big budget, globally coordinated game development.
Yeah.
Got it. But then he makes a jump. And it's not just to a different studio, it's to a whole different reality. We're talking VR, right?
You got it. Around 2016, he just dives headfirst into the world of VR and AR. And this wasn't just, him deciding on a whim. It really mirrored a huge shift in the entire industry. Suddenly, everyone's chasing that immersive tech dream.
Right, VR was the new frontier.
Exactly.
But still, that's a huge GE leap, even for someone with his experience. It's going from painting a landscape to, sculpting one out of thin air while blindfolded. You have to relearn everything.
Totally. And what's so cool is how Liao approached that challenge. He talks about how crucial it was to understand what makes VR unique. It's not about better graphics, it's about presence. It's about making the user feel like they're actually in that other world.
And that comes with a whole different set of challenges, right?
Yeah.
Hello, motion sickness. I can't imagine trying to design a game that's immersive but doesn't make people, lose their lunch. What were some of the other hurdles he had to clear in those early VR days?
Oh, motion sickness. That's a big one for sure. Liao talks about how you have to design for smooth locomotion, avoid any of those jarring movements that can totally throw users off balance.
It's such a weird thing to think about, right? How do you create this sense of freedom, this feeling that you can move anywhere, but also make sure it's comfortable?
Exactly. It's a real balancing act. And it goes beyond just movement, too. Think about user interface design.
Oh, right, because you can't just have a heads-up display in VR, can you?
Not really, no. Liao had to figure out these intuitive ways to, incorporate information controls directly into the environment.
So you're not just pushing buttons on a controller, you're reaching out, almost like interacting with the world for real. That's so cool. Did that lead to any really interesting innovations in his work?
Absolutely. In fact, one of his VR projects, Three Souls VR, really showcases this.
Three Souls VR. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So it's this narrative-driven experience that actually won awards at the Palm Springs Animation Festival in 2019.
Oh, hold on. Award-winning VR. That's incredible. So we're not just talking about games here. We're talking about creating art in this virtual space.
Precisely. And it's been recognized by some major festivals. It also got a bunch of other international awards, too.
Wow, okay. So what made it so special? What was it about Three Souls VR that really captivated people?
Well, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't had a chance to experience it yet, but
Why not?
it just blends interactive storytelling with stunning visuals and this incredible spatial audio design. Liao's team really pushed the boundaries of what VR can do, especially on an emotional level.
It sounds like he wasn't content with just making games. He wanted to create these really moving artistic experiences. And this is where it gets even more interesting because it's not just about him creating, it's about him teaching too, right?
Exactly. And this is a whole other side of Liai's journey. He's super passionate about sharing his knowledge with the next generation of creators.
Right, like with his YouTube channel, CG Hub.
Exactly.
Where he breaks down all these really complex topics. We're talking VR, game design, even AI.
Oh, yeah. And he's also lecturing on the metaverse at universities. He's essentially helping to shape the minds that will be defining the future of these immersive technologies.
Which makes total sense when you think about it. Who better to teach this stuff than someone who's lived through all these evolutions, from Shrek to VR to AI? I mean, come on.
Yeah, it really speaks volumes about his dedication to the craft. And speaking of AI, that's where Liao's story takes another really interesting turn. His latest work isn't just about creating games or VR experiences, it's about exploring the potential of AI in game development.
AI and gaming. Okay, now that's a combo that really gets the old imagination going. It's like, what happens when the stuff in the game starts thinking for itself? Is that terrifying or totally awesome?
Honestly, I think it's a bit of both. And that's what makes Liao's work in this area so fascinating. He's not just talking about, using AI to make prettier graphics or slightly smarter enemies. It's more about how AI can change how games are designed and played on like a fundamental level.
Okay, I like where this is going, but I need my brain to level up a little bit here. Can you give an example? How would AI actually work inside a game differently than what we see already?
Okay, imagine a game world that actually builds itself based on the choices you make as a player.
Okay.
So you're not just following a path someone already laid out for you, You're actually influencing the environment, the story, even the challenges you face. And all of that is driven by AI working behind the scenes.
Whoa, okay. So it's like the game world is alive and responding to you in real time. That's wild. But wouldn't something like that be incredibly difficult to actually design?
That's the exciting part. AI tools are allowing creators like Liao to work on a whole other level of game design. Instead of having to script out every little detail, they can create these systems and rules and then let the AI populate the game world, create variations, even react to players in ways they didn't explicitly program.
So it frees them up to focus on the bigger picture, on making sure the experience is unique and engaging. Is that part of what Liai is teaching too? Like giving this next generation of developers the skills they need to work with AI?
Absolutely. He talks a lot about how understanding AI isn't just for, the programmers anymore. Designers, artists, storytellers, they all need to understand how these tools work if they want to unlock their full creative potential.
It's like he's saying, if you want to shape the future of gaming, you got to understand the tools that are shaping the games themselves. It's not just about making games look better. It's about making them, think differently.
Exactly. And that actually brings us right back to the core of Liao's journey. It's a story about constantly adapting, about embracing these new technologies, and always pushing those creative boundaries.
From Shrek to VR and now AI, he's been on the front lines of it all. So as we wrap things up here, what can our listeners who are also living in this crazy, fast-paced world, what can they take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway from Liao's story is that, the only constant is change, right?
Ain't that the truth?
Whether you're a gamer, a creator, or just someone trying to navigate this tech-driven world, the key is to stay curious, stay adaptable, and don't be afraid to explore those new possibilities that are out there.
Just like Liao himself. And hey, if you're as inspired by his journey as we are, definitely check out his YouTube channel, CG Hub. He really digs into all this stuff and makes it, surprisingly engaging.
It's true.
And for everyone listening, keep exploring, keep playing, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one pioneering the next big thing in gaming. Until next time, this has been your Deep Dive.